There's a question that I see raised online fairly often, and that is, what is the best value dive watch you can buy? And I can guarantee you, every time that question gets asked, there is a bunch of people that respond saying the Glycine Combat Sub. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me. And I'm talking about watches, and I'm talking about a specific watch that I've been wanting to get hands-on experience with for some time. It is the Glycine Combat Sub, a watch that seems to have a huge amount of positivity online, and a huge amount of positivity online specifically from the owners of the watch. And it is great to see watches out there that are being sort of pushed by the owners of the watches, not always people like me just reviewing watches saying, hey, check this watch out, I've had it for a few days. These are people that have owned this watch and say, this watch is one of the best bang for buck watches you can buy and put in your collection. Now, unfortunately, the watch I'm showing you today is not mine. It has been lent into the channel by Mark. Mark is a fellow watch enthusiast that lives locally to me, and he's been able to lend me a few watches recently. So thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate getting some hands-on experience with this watch, because I think there is something special about it. And there's something special about it at a super affordable price, because this watch is easily available online for around about $350 US. And for $350 US or even less, I can't seem to think of any other watch that is as good for that price. Now, that price is on ashford.com. Ashford.com is a website that I buy on quite frequently, and I buy from ashford.com because they're generally the cheapest. I am also an affiliate member with them. It's not the reason why I mention them all the time, but because I am an affiliate member with them, I will leave a link to this watch and maybe a couple of other variations of the Combat Sub in the description below. But for now, I want to jump into a first impressions of this watch and show you what has stood out to me so quickly and why I think so many people have so much positivity to say about this watch. Let's flip the camera and let's check it out. So here we have the second Glycine that I've had hands-on experience with, and it's the Glycine Combat Sub, a watch from the watch brand that I've really wanted to experience, and something that I'm really excited about getting some hands-on experience. This particular one is the Glycine GL0171. Now, there's lots of different options when it comes to Glycine subs, and it's one of my favorite sort of parts about these watches is that there are so many options. It comes with some information about the watch as well, but when I first opened this box, when I first started to look at it, there were 4 things that stood out to me. And that first thing that stood out to me is the quality, especially for the money. When we're talking less than $350 US, this thing is absolutely outstanding. And I honestly can't think of another watch that looks this good, that has the overall quality of this watch at this sort of price. It just blows everything else away that I've seen in this price range. But the second thing that stood out to me, and it stood out to me really quickly, is how thin this watch is. Check out how thin this watch is. Remember, this is a true 200-meter diver, and it is super slim. Now, I don't often do this. I don't often bring other watches into first impressions, but here is a sort of an Orient Star diver that I've been able to borrow as well. And check out the thickness difference between these two watches. Both of them are 200-meter divers, but this Glycine almost feels like a dress watch compared to this Orient diver. The next thing that stood out to me is actually that quality of the bracelet and the clasp. This is a beautifully made bracelet. It feels really nice, obviously solid end links, and it has a really nice clasp on it as well. You can sort of tell when watches do sort of cheap out a little bit. It tends to be on the bracelet and the clasp, and this one here, absolutely not. And for $350 US, and like I keep saying, even less than that, this watch is absolutely outstanding. But it goes further, and that was the fourth thing that sort of stood out to me, is when I found out that this contains the ETA 2824. Yes, this actually contains an ETA Swiss movement. This is a Swiss watch, a 200-meter diver, a beautifully thin watch, a beautifully made watch, containing an ETA 2824 for this price. And I can't think of anything else that can sort of stack up against this watch for that money. But the thing that I also like about these Combat Subs, which I've mentioned, is the variety. This is a black dial with a sort of blue bezel insert, but there's all sorts of different colors, even different dial styles, different sort of color inserts into the bezels. So if you don't like this particular one, there's generally going to be one out there for you. There are some nice simple ones like just all black, but then there's some colored versions as well, which is really nice. And it's just, yeah, at this price, I'm going to keep saying it because it really does shock me. But then on top of all of that, I just like the look of it. I think it's a great looking watch, and I can now see why so many people are so amazed by this one. And you'll see on my 6 3/4 or around about 17 centimeter wrists that this sort of 42 millimeter diver sits really nicely, but it's that really stands out. I just keep catching myself looking down my wrist at that angle to see how thin this watch is on wrist. It really actually reminds me of my Longines Hydro Conquest, which is also nice and thin, but also a 200 or 300 meter diver. It reminds me of this. However, that Longines is 4 times the price of this Glycine, and it contains pretty much the same movement as well. Really does show you the value you're getting for this sort of watch on your wrist. Guys, whilst you wait for the full impression of this one, maybe check out these videos next.